I think risk is part of how a lot of our communities have had to survive. Like, you couldn't get through life unless you took risks, you know? So I think for a lot of us, it's kind of part of how we've learned to navigate the world. I think sometimes it can be a little bit to our detriment because we go, go, go. We're so impulsive with our risks, but it's because I don't know that we've learned how to do it otherwise.
I think it's very important that people understand who they are. Why is it so important for you to behave in this way as opposed to another way? Because so and so may like you, you know, that shouldn't be the basis for you taking risks.
So it's like risk is a form of authenticity. Like, it really allows you to bring your full person into whatever part of life you're living right now. Like, I'm choosing to show up because I know who I am and I know how important it is for me to take this risk and maybe even create some connection out of it. The older we get, we forget that risk is part of growth.
But earlier we were talking about it being like even a bigger sense of love rather than liking me.
And my point was, they're missing out not knowing me and loving me, because to know me is to love me.
Yeah. Maybe it's like a delayed gratification. Like, there's benefit, maybe not while you're actively taking the risk, but like afterward, you can look back and say, okay, that was worth it. Or you can look back and say, okay, that was really hard. I don't like that I did it this particular way, but the next time I will still take the risk. I just might do it this way instead.
That's true. That's true. And this is what is so positive about taking risks, is that you are able to look back, kind of plot out what made it what it was or what it is. What causes so much fear? Because you're so concerned about how folk perceive you. The folk who matter will continue to love me, and that's all that matters to me.
You had your community.
Yeah.
And people that you trusted working with you. And
yes, and it does make a difference.
That's a piece of risk too, is like being willing to be wrong and then be like, yeah, that was not great.
And accept it. And accept it in terms of our risk taking. Or those who I care about don't consider it necessarily as a wrong. They lift up the fact that I did it. And the purposes for which I did it are valid. And now we're able to explain to folk why we did it. That's important as part of self-evaluation, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's like, the calculated risk versus the reckless risk. And I think what we're finding in our relationships is there are times where we make reckless risks, right? And that's when we damage the relational connection because we took a risk that we didn't really think about so far as the impact that it might have on other people. And I think what we find in relationships, if we're, self-aware, anchored, grounded, and connected to ourselves, is, okay, I need to make a calculated risk before I, go 100% into whatever this thing is, right? And the more calculated we can be, I think, is an authentic practice because you're aware of how your actions might help other people. But I also can tell that you don't want to be so calculated that you don't take any risks at all. And that's where I feel like a lot of us can struggle, is because if we've been burned or if we've made mistakes, then it's like, I won't even do the math to calculate what it means to try relational connection again. It's just, I just can't find benefit in risking, when really this is about what's the function of the relationship. And does risk move us towards fulfilling the function of the relationship, or does it, damage the relationship? And maybe that's a better way for us to decide which risks are worth taking.
Yeah.
That's a profound question. Is this worthy of me? Will I grow from this? Or how can I encourage others to grow from this?
Yeah, risk as a growth fostering experience. Because it's like you said, Ms. D, can I explain to somebody why I took the risk that I did? If they were to challenge me, or if they were to ask me, well, why did you do it this way? I can explain, this is why I did it. And I think everybody, like you're saying, should have that inside of them to be able to say, this is why I took, this is the risk that I took, And this is why. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like me, but you should understand where it is that I'm coming from when I choose to take risks. That's what I hear you saying. And I appreciate that. I don't know what gets in the way for people when it comes to taking risks, but I think risking is part of growing. Somebody has to take a risk in order for us to be able to learn from them, right?
Exactly. Because life is a learning process.
That makes me think, LaShawn, of when you have talked about good conflict and being able to engage in that.
It requires a lot of us. And I think oftentimes we feel like we can get into conflict on behalf of like other people, but I think sometimes we need to get in conflict on behalf of our own growth.
Yeah.
And that's a risk. If all sides involved are willing to take risks, right, and develop that supported vulnerability, then we continue to have constructive conflict because it's got to build something. If we're going to choose to engage in conflict, what do we want to build because of the conflict?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And to what extent are others willing to participate in that conflict?
I was just thinking of that. I was thinking of like when you're in a group where you haven't had an agreement about this is what we're going to do. We're going to muck around in this messy stuff and we're going to disagree and we're going to represent ourselves authentically. But the situations where that's not already the underlying agreement is harder.
It's even a risk to name that as it's happening. Like if you can see conflict brewing and it's like, wait, we don't have ground rules for this. It's a risk to say, hey, I'm noticing that the conversation's getting a little bit hot. Does everyone still want to participate in this conversation? Even interrupting or intervening in that way is risky. The risk to speak up and the risk to like maybe not speak up.
That's true.
How do you decide when it's worth your energy?
Well, and it comes back to what Miss D was saying earlier. Like, am I doing this for them and for how they feel, or am I doing this because it's important to me?
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to take the risk because it's what I value. And it's the bottom line for me. It's not about whether my risk changes them, impacts them, any of that. I got to say, because if I don't, I'm not going to sleep well or be able to look at myself in the mirror because I didn't take the risk that I knew I should have taken. That's kind of how I interpret it. That's how I decide if I'm going to use my energy. Like, if I'm going to have a problem with me, if I don't say something, then I probably need to say that I'm going to say something. I'm going to take that risk, whether it has an influence or an impact on other folks or not. It's important to me to say something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if even if whatever you say doesn't change the outcome of that conversation, it changes you because you were true to yourself, right? You maintained your authenticity and you spoke up when it matters most for you. It may not matter for the group or the folks you're talking to, but for you and your growth and your authenticity, it matters. Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yeah. And even if it's not in that relationship, I think like being able to step into your authenticity.
Transform another relationship.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
How many of us are scared to speak up at a certain time and then we do and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't die. I can try this again some other time because I didn't die this one time that I tried to do it and I was really scared as I was doing it.
Practice.
Authenticity is a practice. RCT is a practice.
Yeah.
If I'm scared to take risks, but my commitment to growth is bigger than how scared I am to take risks, I'm going to choose growth every time. And if I notice that I didn't take the risk, I'm like, okay, next time